What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Take His Whistle podcast. We got a good one as always. We got some championship updates for you guys. We've got some live results as the podcast goes on, and just some other playoff implications and some other big moments that could potentially happen. Stay tuned and see you guys in a couple seconds.
Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
Lets it fly.
Oh my goodness! Touchdown LSU! They win the game! Bad today, so I got time to be tripping or writing no love song. Yeah, writing no love song. We all experience love loss. Yeah.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Take His Whistle podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Josh, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host and good friend, Parker.
What is up?
And today, it's a different episode because college games are going on, as we're talking right now. But I'll let him talk about it a little bit if he feels like it. But we had some situations going down on Thursday, so we weren't able to record the college episode on normal schedule. But we figured here we are today while games are still going on. It could be a good one to maybe get some live results, live reactions going, but also, just get an episode for you guys.
Yeah, Thursday was still the scheduled day. Unfortunately, though, I was actually in a car accident coming home from work on Thursday, which was a whole ordeal. Ended up, I didn't get home till fairly late, and we just we'll do it another time. But we are here. And we had thoughts of and considerations of potentially doing a live reaction of the Louisville Cardinals game. That ended up not happening. We ended up just watching the Louisville game, just locking into that and just focusing just on that instead of actually commentating and talking during the game. So, Josh, if you don't mind, I think that's the first thing we talk about is the Louisville Cardinals went into Miami, Florida, beat Miami 38-31 to advance to their first ever ACC championship game. Josh, what did you think?
Yes,
what are you thinking?
Sir, we are ACC championship bound, and we are bound to play Florida State in Charlotte. And hopefully it's going to be a good one. Florida State's obviously an extremely good team, very good team. But I will say they have shown flaws. But I'll get into that in a little bit. As far as the game today, Parker, in my personal opinion, the first half was a bit, we were kind of tippy-toeing the line of maybe giving it away. But the defense and Jack Plummer both stepped up in the second half, and they were able to. We got in the end zone off of a 58-yard touchdown from Kevin Coleman and Jack Plummer to Kevin Coleman, and then from there the defense was able to just hold Miami out and not allow them to get into the end zone. Almost had a Hail Mary there at the end, but we were able to get him down before he could run into the end zone. But just overall, my immediate reaction of the game. The first half was, very rocky, but we managed to get the win nonetheless. I didn't expect it to be, I guess 7 points was the spread, so I guess we did technically cover, I think. I think that's how it works, right?
What was the spread?
7. Or
sure
6.5. 6.5.
6.5. Then yeah, you guys cover. So you guys beat the spread.
Yeah, so we beat the spread, which is always nice. But we got a true road game win. And I know going into this game, Parker, that was one of your big worries for us, is because we just haven't had many true road games this year. We've only had 2 before this game today. Every other away game has just been a neutral site game. So, that was definitely one of your big worries. But, we went in, we got the win. I will say, though, a noon game, you could definitely you could definitely see in the crowd that it was a noon game for sure, at least in my opinion. And that's nothing against, like, Miami. That's nothing on Miami. It would be the same way in Louisville. It'd be the same way in Lexington. A noon game, just it's kind of hard to make it to those. But yeah, Parker, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that was my main thing about Louisville. And if you honestly asked me, I thought Louisville was losing this game. I think that and now your other two road games have been Pittsburgh and North Carolina State. And North Carolina State is probably behind Louisville and Florida State. They're the hottest team in the ACC right now. They are extremely good, and they're continuously getting better. So every week, that is just making that win that Louisville beat North Carolina State, that's making it look better and better every single week. But going into this game at Miami, regardless of how it's been the past few years and stuff like that, Miami is still a historic program. Some might even say if you're talking blue bloods of football, Miami might be in that blue blood conversation. But no, I tip my hat to Louisville. They did it again. I will say they're playing with the devil here. They are playing with the devil. Back-to-back weeks, they escape barely, come from behind wins. But that's what you get when you have a team full of seniors, or juniors and seniors, experienced guys that they don't crack under pressure, and they get the job done. But my main takeaway from the game is something that not only me but all Louisville fans have kind of just preached for the past season, really, how good your all's offensive line is. Once again, it prevailed. You guys gave Jack Plummer as much time as he really needed. You gave a great running lanes for Garendo and I guess Jordan, which that's a whole nother story, is Gerard Jordan and kind of just the downfall he's had this season. But just another great performance from the offensive line, and I think that's truly what helped you guys get that victory. And, it's on to Florida State.
Yeah. Well, first off, obviously, like you said, it is on to Florida State. But first and foremost, more importantly, at least in my opinion, me personally, I like to go week by week. So it's not Florida State yet. It's on to Kentucky, in my opinion. But, we can talk about that in a few minutes after, some other specifics that I want to talk about in the game. Both QBs, honestly, quite frankly, had a very, they both played very exceptional, very good. Tyler Van Dyke went 24 for 39, 327 yards and a touchdown. Jack Plummer went 24 for 37, 308 yards, 3 touchdowns and an interception. And then both running backs did very well as well. Obviously, our run defense was a little bit worse than theirs. And then normal, too. Going into this game, Miami and Louisville both had top 10 run defenses in the nation. So, that was definitely that was a thing that I think a lot of people were keeping their eye out for this game is I think a lot of people were saying whoever ran the ball best would win the game. Obviously, that didn't come out to be true because Miami ran the ball better, but they, still lost. But nonetheless, they really, really did well running the ball. I mean, Mark Fletcher, 17 carries, 126 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Did all he could to keep them in that game, and he did. He did a very good job today. And Isaac Garendo, you named him already, Parker. 15 carries, 93 yards, and a touchdown. He did very well as well today. But one thing I did want to touch on is you mentioned the downfall of Gerard Jordan. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a downfall, mainly because he's had an injury for the last few weeks, and he's just been kind of battling that. And ever since Isaac Garendo has kind of like stepped up the way that everyone wanted him to, and he has far exceeded that stepping up boundary. I mean, he's far and away like exceeded those expectations for sure. But I just think it's more of a thing where maybe they're just gonna keep doing this until maybe the championship game, or maybe against you guys. Maybe we'll see more of an active Jawar Jordan. But for the last few weeks, we've seen Jawar Jordan get significantly less carries than normal.
I think it's definitely safe to say where we're at right now, especially the past 3 or 4 weeks that Louisville's played, that Isaac Garendo is the starting running back for you all.
Yeah, no, he definitely has been for sure for the last few weeks, and he has honestly, quite frankly, proven why maybe he should have been from the beginning of the year. And I know that's kind of crazy to hear because Jawar Jordan, obviously has having an amazing season, but I more so mean that from a point of if he was on a different team, he would probably be the starting running back.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think, like you said, Jawar Jordan battling injuries. You also had Jamari Thrash, another player from Louisville that was also battling injury. He was pretty much completely ineffective today. He only had 1 catch for 7 yards. So, I mean, that just shows the depth of Louisville and the will to win whenever some of your, I guess, arguably your 2 best offensive players, Jordan and Thrash, both are kind of 80% ready to go, and you guys are still able to pull the win out without them really being a huge factor. Also, you also got to look at it of Miami's side. Stupid play calls and late penalties really cost them that game. Me and Josh even we're talking about it. The timeout whenever they were on the 2-yard line on a 3rd down or 4th down, which, I mean, if it works out, it's a smart touchdown, or it's a smart timeout. You call the timeout, you get the right play, you make sure everybody's comfortable with the play, you know what you guys are running. So if it works out, great. But then you have a case where it doesn't work out, and it was an overthrown ball. Now Louisville can just run the clock out to where I think Miami got the ball back with like 30 seconds left in the game. It could have been a minute. It could have been a full minute with that last timeout. And then obviously the late penalty flags, that one receiver from Miami, I don't know what his name is, but he really threw a temper tantrum there at the end, and it looked like push one of the Louisville players in the helmet. So just stupid penalties after stupid penalties kind of really threw the game away for them late in the end. But, I mean, that's just what you expect this year for Miami. This year has been such a disappointing season. If you want to talk about disappointing season, it's this Miami team. I mean, all the way back to, was it when they played Boston College? Whenever they should have kneeled the ball. Was that Boston College?
Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech. I mean, they could have been 5-0, sitting top 15 in the nation if they were to win that game. But, they ran the ball and everything played out the way it did, and now they're sitting at 6-5 on the year. And Miami just, I don't know. It's been this all year long. That's how you would expect them to lose a ball game, was the way they lost today.
Yeah, and another big thing that I noticed as far as the Louisville side goes, didn't allow a sack today, which is also something very, because coming into this game, Miami has a very good defensive line, and to allow no sacks, or to allow really no pressure, because Jack Plummer, he kind of had plenty of time today to just kind of sit there and figure out his reads, and obviously there were a few times where he had to escape the pocket, and he kind of threw it away, but for the most part I feel like our O-line gave him plenty of time, and you mentioned it already, made plenty of holes as well. But back to the reffing thing, I mean, I feel like the ACC might be the only league in college football where every team in the conference or league, whatever you want to call it, every fan base can all unanimously come together and just say how bad the refs are. Because if you've watched ACC football this year, then you know that the refs have blown so many games for so many teams. We saw it last week with Duke against North Carolina. Duke should have won that game, but the refs handed it to North Carolina. You saw it today. Plenty of missed calls on both sides of the ball for Louisville and Miami. I mean, it's just it's so infuriating to know that we play in a conference where, and it goes the same way in every conference. It's not just the ACC, but specifically in the ACC, I feel like literally any game can be won or lost strictly because of the refs. No matter how good your team plays, no matter how good you do as a team, you can still somehow manage to lose that game because of the refs. And it's so infuriating to know that.
I think it's just, not just that, but just the ACC as a whole is such a bloodbath. I mean, besides Florida State this year, every team is losing to bad teams. Every team has a really bad loss on their schedule, or on their record, really. And then those bad teams are losing to even worse teams. And it's like, what? It's just it's a free-for-all in the ACC. Besides Florida State. And so, I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily the refs do have really bad calls, and there was some questionable calls today in Miami, but I think it's more or less just, I mean, regardless, anybody could win. We saw it last week whenever Louisville played Virginia. Nobody in the world gave Virginia a chance against Louisville. And what did they do? They went out and played their tail off, and some should say they should have won that game against Louisville. But, you know, like, again, it's just Louisville's will to win. But, I mean, that's just helps my point. The ACC is just a straight free-for-all. It's a whoever shows up in a better mindset, a better team that given Saturday.
Yeah, and, you know, I feel like one of our strengths is that, you know, that will to win, that never give up mentality. And I feel like that's one of our strengths going into the championship game is because, you know, when we've seen Florida State play, we see them play all these other ACC teams, and we kind of just see all these other ACC teams kind of just give up at halftime. Like, I mean, Duke, for example. Duke was winning at halftime, if I'm not mistaken. They were up 3, I believe. But then the moment they started going down, they just kind of gave up.
Against who? I mean, North Carolina?
No, against Florida State. When Duke played Florida State.
Oh, my bad.
And so it's kind of, it gives me optimism because I know that if it's a close game, we're not just going to give up, which obviously no team should be giving up. But it's just a weird thing I've noticed when people play against Florida State. It just seems like once Florida State gets in their groove, it's almost as if other teams don't try to get them out of it, even if they're only down by 7. Or even 14 for that matter.
I think to me it's an intimidation factor. I mean, you saw it last week whenever Kentucky played Alabama. Kentucky just looked like they were scared almost. Like, oh God, we're playing Alabama, the almighty Alabama. And it shows. Alabama just dog walked Kentucky. But I think that's a reason why teams, you know, once Florida State gets going and all that stuff, teams kind of go away from their tried and true and start trying to make the big plays, and it doesn't pay off all the time. I think that's something that happens with Florida State a lot just because they are undefeated.
Yeah, and I hope Louisville doesn't, because historically Louisville and Florida State have been so neck and neck together. Like, I don't know what the all-time record is, but
I mean, what, you guys only played them? You guys only played
them.
Yeah,
we haven't played them many times, but I believe we might be down in the series maybe by 1 game. So both schools have been very even with each other as far as head-to-head. So, you know, it's. I hope we don't. I hope we don't. You know, get.
It is 6-16, 6-18.
Oh yeah, never mind. I see that now. I didn't know. I to be honest, I didn't know we played them before we joined the ACC. So
yeah,
that
me
might
neither.
just be a lack of knowledge from me. But
well, I wonder how long has Florida? Were you guys in? I wonder if you guys were in the same conference prior to both you guys being in the ACC, because that's a lot of times you guys played each other.
Yeah, I'm fairly confident that they've been in the ACC for a very long time. I could be wrong, but
yeah, I have no clue on that.
But yeah, so yeah, it's just I'm excited. I'm excited for next week against you all. I'm excited for Florida State. It's hopefully I hope it all goes good, but obviously you never know.
And I hope that, well, I don't know if I really hope, but I know for Louisville fans, to the average Louisville fan that is not looking to the bigger picture like the ACC championship, for Louisville, Kentucky is your all's number one game. That is the game that you guys circle and that you want to win no matter what. I hope that it is competitive and not something where Louisville is either one sitting players or they're just kind of looking past Kentucky. As a Kentucky fan, I want Louisville's best. I want them to come in there, act like if we lose this game, our season's over, type of thing. Because that's the mentality that Kentucky's going to have. Kentucky is going to have that mentality. We have nothing else to play for. I mean, I guess you can say our bowl game, but I mean, that doesn't mean too much. Then that bowl game doesn't mean as much as this Louisville game to Kentucky fans. So I hope Louisville comes out with the same energy that Kentucky will come out with.
Yeah, it's going to be... yeah, for sure. It's going to be a good one. I have a question. I have an interesting question for you, Parker.
Yeah.
So, we hear a lot with teams. We hear it with, a lot of rivalries. We hear people say that this game is my team's Super Bowl. You famously say that Tennessee is Kentucky's Super Bowl, which, fair, because...
I'd say Florida is.
Florida? Okay. So, in perspective of how this season is going, would you say that and again, this is your opinion, whatever, not, but would you say that it is now maybe Louisville? Because now you guys have the potential to completely derail any playoff hopes that we might have, or to be honest, any real, which we're probably going to get a really good bowl game regardless, even if we do lose to you guys and Florida State. But if you guys beat us and then we lose to Florida State, that's 3 losses on the season. So, obviously we get a diminished bowl game. So you guys have the potential to ruin any playoff hopes we have, and depending on how the rest of the season plays out, potentially knock us out of a New Year's Six Bowl. So, would you say that Louisville is now the Super Bowl for this season for Kentucky football, or would you still say?
So, and I it's not just me saying this; it's kind of a proven fact, and a big part might be just because Louisville has not been in the ACC this long. Every single year that when the schedules come out, like at the beginning of the year when all teams are 0-0 record, Louisville's number one game is Kentucky. Regardless. If you guys play Florida State this year or not, Kentucky is always going to be your number one game. To Kentucky, Louisville is third, maybe fourth. Because above them all time, it is always going to be Florida, then Tennessee. Then you could potentially say Georgia, just because, but that's only kind of a recent thing because Georgia has been so dominant. So I mean, I would just say Louisville is our third most anticipated game of the season. So now, knowing what we know, this far, yes, it is. I mean, we're playing a top 10 team. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter who it is. We're playing a top 10 team. So this is you could say our Super Bowl. But I mean, if you're looking at the beginning of the season, it's still Florida. It's just such a rivalry that extends deeper than just in-state rivalry. And then obviously it goes to football, and it goes to football, and then basketball, and then baseball, volleyball. It's just something that Kentucky and Florida just don't like each other at all. And then me personally, I could just be saying this because as much as I dislike Tennessee, I don't like their program at all. Every year that I see Tennessee, which we play Tennessee every single year. Every time that I see Tennessee, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna really tap into that game because I simply don't like Tennessee. And then for Louisville, in my perspective, I mean, Yeah, it's our rival, and I do want to see us beat Louisville because they are a rival. Louisville also is the hometown team for me. It's not something where if me living in Louisville, it's not a huge group of people saying, yep, fuck Louisville, compared to where we play Tennessee or Florida, everybody is saying, fuck Florida, fuck Tennessee. Because we just, it's just different, and it might be a lot different if I lived in Lexington. I don't know anybody that lives in Lexington personally or has lived in Lexington my whole life. So to them, it could be different. It could be like, we hate Louisville. But me living in Louisville personally, I still necessarily wouldn't say this is our big Super Bowl game compared to Tennessee or Florida.
Yeah, I get that.
If that answers your question.
You get a different perspective living here and living around Louisville fans pretty much only, except for, like family. So you get kind of
then, most of my family's Louisville fans too.
Yeah, so you get kind of a different perspective because you kind of just see a bunch of Louisville support. So I'm sure it could differ if you go to Lexington. I'm sure a lot of them up there could potentially probably be like, nah, fuck Louisville. Like that's our biggest game of the season. But I would say it's also fair to say, like, it could also just be the conference differences. The SEC, it just has way more ability to have like way more important games than against, your ACC rival opponent. You know what I mean? Because
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, because if you're in the SEC and you're playing all these other SEC schools, you would definitely want to beat another SEC school way more than not a lesser conference, but I'm just going to go ahead and say lesser conference for now, just to kind of improve my point, I guess. Because let's be honest, the SEC is the best conference in football. It was lackluster at the beginning of this year, but now it's back to being the best. They turned literally every team that we thought was down, turned it around. So, in my opinion and my thought process, getting an SEC win, obviously any win is great, but getting that SEC win is what I feel is more important to you guys than getting a win against an ACC opponent that doesn't affect really anything.
And that's another thing, which we'll talk about it more next week whenever we're kind of really looking at the preview of Louisville versus Kentucky. Louisville's first matchup against a SEC opponent. And like the SEC is a different breed, almost, you could say. I mean, SEC is so hard-nosed and hard-knocked that it's going to be a true test for Louisville, regardless of what type of season Kentucky is having, because they're just straight up an SEC team. I even if you guys were to play Mississippi State or Vanderbilt, I think it would be a little bit closer because of just the SEC play. We're playing an SEC opponent every single week. There's no easy weeks at all in the SEC, unless you're Georgia. And I'm curious to see how Louisville does react, and this is going to be a big test going into the Florida State game. I said the same thing about this week, and I was extremely impressed that Louisville was able to play the way they did against Miami, because I was like, this is their first true road game against a really good opponent. Now you got another really big opponent, but this time it's an SEC opponent. So I think both of these weeks, Miami and Kentucky, if you guys somehow win both of these games, it's going to completely get you guys ready for the Florida State game. And if you guys do end up beating Kentucky, I bet you a lot of people start to turn their heads towards the Louisville side and say, Louisville actually might have a serious chance of beating Florida State.
Yeah, I am interested to see if your point there, as far as because it's an SEC school, it's automatically harder. Looking ahead in the season, I'm interested to see if, that affects Florida State when they play Florida next week.
Correct, yeah.
Obviously, Florida State is very good. I feel like most people would say they're way better than Louisville. Most people. I'm not saying that, obviously, because I'm a Louisville fan. It'd be stupid of me to say that.
And me being a Kentucky fan, I wouldn't say that. Because Florida State has showed so many holes before in the past.
Yeah. And, if obviously, it's in the past now, so it is what it is, but also scored less on Miami and also allowed Miami to almost beat them, much like us. You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, which it's very funny, but I feel as if Florida State and Louisville have both shown somewhat of the same cracks in their game. And what I mean by that is if you watch Florida State play, they have the ability to give up very big plays and allow teams to play closer to them than what it really should be. We saw it against Boston College. We saw it against Duke in the first half. We saw it against Miami, And you look at Louisville, and it's the same thing. You see the ability on defense to give up big plays. We saw it today against Miami. We saw it last week against Virginia, just to name a couple. But would you somewhat agree with me there, Parker, that both teams have kind of shown the same cracks in their game? And on top of that, I think Louisville's running game is a bit more focused than Florida State's, but, both teams run the ball well. Both teams, fairly good passing. I would obviously give the edge to Florida State just because they have those two freaks at wide receiver. But, both lines are really good. I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of just overthinking it a little bit, but I find the teams to be not completely similar, but somewhat similar in a sense.
Yeah, I think that if you were asking me, being a Kentucky fan, an unbiased opinion, I think Louisville has a better defense than Florida State. I genuinely do. But at the same time, I think Florida State overall has a better complete offense than you all do. Now, you guys do things better offensively, like run the ball, but I think as far as mixing in the running game, the passing game, the QB scramble, and just overall play calling, which I think Louisville had a lot of good plays called that I was really impressed by. But I think overall, I think Florida State has a little bit better playbook. I think it's really very, very similar. I mean, even like you said, if you look at the schedule, Duke put up way more points against Florida State than they did against Louisville, right? But on the other end, Florida State completely dismantled Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's literally the same exact thing minus the Duke-Pittsburgh game.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I completely blanked out on while you were speaking. What was your point? What were you saying?
I just think that they're extremely close overall. I think Louisville has a better defense, and then I think Florida State has a better overall offense. But Louisville does things better than Florida State offensively, but overall, it's Florida State that has a better offense.
Right. Yeah, it makes me excited for that ACC championship game because I feel like not that I have to say this, but because I also just find it to be true. I think Louisville, has a real chance to beat Florida State. And I feel like if you talk to enough people, I feel like you'd find a decent amount of people would say the same thing. I mean, we were at a Louisville game a couple weeks ago, Parker, and we ran into a couple Florida State fans that were there kind of scoping out their competition. And, I mean, obviously, they could have just been bullshitting, kind of hyping us up. But, I mean, these Florida State fans said that they don't think Florida State has anything to stop us as far as offense goes. So, I mean, I don't know. It could be a very good battle, and it might be a shootout, Parker. It might just be, at the end of the day, who can put up the most points and get stopped the least amount of times.
Very similar to how today was with the Louisville-Miami game. I think that's how it's going to end up playing out. There was one other thing I did want to point out. And then for Florida State's, I will say, I think if the defense comes out from the Duke game, I think Florida State could potentially be in a lot of trouble. Maybe. Agreed. But at the same time, just something to kind of fuel Florida State is I have seen a lot of people talking about the college football playoffs. and they have been ranking their top 10. A lot of people have Florida State out of that top 4 spot, and some people are even having them sitting around the number 8 spot, as far as not even like the outside looking in.
It's a must-win for them, for sure. If they went out and they get into the championship game undefeated, it's a must-win for them. If they lose, they're out.
And they're one of 4 undefeated teams left this year in the race. I know James Madison, which last time I checked, they were on upset alert. But the top 4 undefeated teams, and they are still getting talked about not making the playoffs. And
which is wild. That's so wild to me, because in my opinion, they're 4. Like they're in right now. They're 4 in my opinion.
And most people do have Michigan and Ohio State both in, regardless of the fact that they're probably gonna have to play each other twice.
Yeah, probably.
And so they both. So there, I just feel like if somehow Michigan beats Ohio State back-to-back weeks, there's no way Ohio State gets in. But the fact that they just straight up
they don't play each other. Sorry, I keep interrupting you, but they don't. They don't play twice.
Is there no championship game?
There is, but they're just not in the same. They're like in the same division.
Oh, I didn't even know there was divisions in that conference.
Yeah, they have East and West in the Big Ten, and they're.
I didn't know
that. They're in the same thing.
Okay, well, so yeah, I guess that kind of really changes.
Pretty
I guess
sure.
if Michigan beats Ohio State, there is still a chance Ohio State gets in. But still, anyways, Florida State undefeated. They have very similar to Louisville. They have done everything that the ACC has asked them to do, and they are still not even on the outside looking in. They're all the way down to 8. Literally, the rankings this week that I was watching somebody, they said number 10 is Penn State, number 9 is Louisville, and number 8 is Florida State. They and their reasoning is because, yeah, Florida State is undefeated, but there are just better teams, which is such a questionable argument in my opinion.
Yeah, it's it's just wild to me that people have them so low, because they've played so well, and I know they've shown cracks, but at the end of the day, Parker, they're still undefeated. They haven't lost a game.
And then I guess
there's only 2 games left in the season.
I guess to my side, just to play devil's advocate, again, I've brought this up to Louisville, for Louisville's standpoint as well. The ACC sucks. The ACC is definitely the worst Power 5 conference this year. That could be why they are being just looked at wrong, because very similar to Louisville, Florida State really escapes with a fairly easy schedule, minus them playing LSU at the beginning of the season. They played Clemson on the road, played Duke, and then Miami. There's not too many really tough games they have as well on their schedule. So
yeah,
I think that could be why they are saying that Florida State isn't that good, just because, again, their strength of schedule isn't that good.
To counterbalance your point that you just made, I just want to say, for the past few years when Clemson has been running the table, making the national championship every year, for that 4 or 5 year stretch, I think it was about that long. Maybe I could be wrong, but we all know the teams I'm talking about. You know, Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson. Everyone knows the teams I'm talking about. When you look back and you look at the ACC during those times, it was the same shit. It was the same teams being okay, not, crazy elite. Florida State wasn't elite. Definitely not what they were now. Obviously, Louisville wasn't that great. We were probably actually in our worst times in program history, actually. So that argument is just so weird to me when people want to do that to Florida State now when they didn't want to do it to Clemson a few years ago. So it doesn't make much sense to me why people would do that to somebody else. But I just find it kind of weird, because I personally don't like it, because and this is me kind of supporting Florida State in a sense, just because if they are going to make the playoffs, then treat them like you did to Clemson. And Clemson, for that matter, Clemson was as high as like 1 or 2 every year. So I just, it's just weird to me.
I just really quick. So the last time they won it was in 2018. I really quickly looked up Clemson's schedule from 2018. Yeah.
Oh,
they won
shit.
in 2018.
I thought they made it like a couple years after that too. I didn't know 2018 was the last year they made it.
That was the last year that you won it. They might have made it, but the last year they won it.
Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, I was about to say, because I could have swore they made it in like 19 and 20, but lost both times.
Here is the only difference that I can really come up with, the difference from Clemson in 2018 and Florida State this year. There wasn't a close game on this schedule. Clemson, the closest game was against Texas A&M, where they won by 2. But, I mean, they beat...
But everything other than that.
They beat Georgia Tech 49-21. They beat Wake Forest 63-3. NC State 41-7. Florida State 59-10. Louisville 77-16. Boston College 27-7. Duke 35-6. South Carolina 56-35, and then Pittsburgh 42-10. There wasn't like every one of those games were a 30-plus point win. And that was against some ranked teams, too, like Syracuse. Syracuse was ranked 15 that year. Texas A&M was ranked 16. So that some ranked opponents, not too many, but still, I think that's the difference is how dominant they were. They didn't let
how much they were beating people by.
Yeah, that would be really the only thing I can think about.
Yeah, and, to be fair, they did play more, I guess, quote, competition. They did play Texas A&M and South Carolina, so that is 2 SEC teams on the schedule.
But that's what Florida State's doing. They played LSU and Florida this year.
Yeah, but we haven't seen the result of that Florida game yet, so...
And that Florida game is in the swamp.
Yeah, and so we'll see what that does, because if they lose that game, then... I mean, if they lose that game, they're probably out of the playoffs, right? Even if they win the ACC championship.
Florida State, if they lose to Florida?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you still have undefeated Washington. You have a 1-loss Oregon that could avenge their loss to Washington.
A 1-loss Alabama team too.
Yeah, a 1-loss Alabama. Yeah. So if they lose, if Florida upsets Florida State, then I mean,
and people are already doubting Florida State as it is. So I think definitely they're not getting the love that they should be as far as being a undefeated team in a Power 5 conference. I think if they do lose to a 5-5 Florida team, then it's just they have no fight or hope to be in the ACC championship game, or in the playoff championship game. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Okay, well. Man, I'm looking at like Clemson over the past like few years, and they hold on, I gotta find like where I'm at here. In 2018, they made the national championship 1, obviously against Alabama. Let's see here. Yeah, so they won it back-to-back years. I believe if I'm reading this correctly, the schedule's so it's confusing the hell out of me right now. I'm not gonna lie. But I believe they won it back-to-back years, maybe with a gap year in between, and then they immediately just ran into that Joe Burrow LSU team, which is just...
Clemson won it in 1981, 2016, and 2018.
Okay, so there was a gap year. 2017.
Yeah 2017. Okay. Who won it in 2017?
I don't know. I'd say probably Alabama.
It was... What? Well, now this is saying... Okay, hang on. Let me go back. It was Alabama.
Yeah.
I think.
That might have been Tua.
Who did they play that year? I have no clue. That all kinds of run. I don't remember any of those years.
Yeah, it's whatever. It doesn't matter.
But okay, yeah.
Yeah, so going away from Louisville for a little bit, I think we had a fair share of Louisville talk. 45 minutes in, and we're just now getting done with Louisville.
Really quick, there's 57 seconds in the fourth quarter. James Madison has the ball. They just tied it. Oh my gosh, they just tied it. What? I guess they scored and then went for two. Wow, they just tied it with 57 seconds left.
Isn't it wild that they're ranked 18th and they can't make a bowl game?
That's another
thing. And they're undefeated.
There was news today that the NCAA denied James Madison's eligibility for a bowl game. The only way they can make a bowl game this year is if there is a lack of 6-win teams.
Which
I don't
think there is.
Yeah, there's gonna be. There's gonna be. I guess this could be this Kentucky game could be really, really big for James Madison if they are just looking around the league. South Carolina only has 4 wins right now, so that could be another team that if somehow South Carolina wins out because they play Clemson the week afterwards, they could be potentially bowl eligible. So just different games
sucks.
like that.
Like, that just sucks. Imagine being a fan of James Madison, seeing your team being ranked as high as 18th. They're probably going to end up higher. And, you're undefeated, and you can't even make a bowl game? Not even, like, a good bowl game aside. Like, just a bowl game. Like, you can't even make the fucking GoDaddy Bowl or some shit. Like,
look, here's the thing. So I understand where the NCAA is coming from as far as they can't be bowl eligible. A big reason is because when you see teams transition into that upper echelon of Division I, most teams struggle the first couple years. They can't get recruits. They're just outmatched. They're outcoached. They're outpowered. And so I get it. That year is just to kind of, those first couple years are really supposed to just kind of get your feet wet, kind of get things rolling. They've never had a circumstance where they've had an undefeated team in their first year. But it is the rules. It's not something that they just implemented this year. So I hate it for James Madison, but at the same time, I understand. I understand it.
Yeah, I guess. It sucks. I hate that for them.
It does. And, I mean, James Madison, if you're just looking at the college world, James Madison is on top of the world. They're coming in basketball. They upset number 4 Michigan State. Their soccer team just beat the undefeated number 1, I forgot who it was, maybe UCF. UCF, I think, was undefeated, and they were the number 1 overall team in soccer. James Madison upset them and beat them. I mean, James Madison really is on top of the world when it comes to college sports. So,
yeah,
I mean,
they're
seeing
thriving
setbacks
right now,
like
man.
this, it would really suck. Are they eligible next year for a bowl game?
I don't know the answer to that, but I'd fucking hope so. I would hope so.
Yeah, I would hate to see them be eligible next year and then they just like everybody
don't do
leaves
as good.
or transfers or something like that, and they're just
I guess that is a big, I guess that is a pretty big thing. Like if you're going, your first year and what's it called, FBS single A, to do this, to pretty much shock the world, and then potentially have the risk of all your players transferring out to better teams. That would definitely suck.
Why if you are a really good player like that defensive player, Jalen Green, I believe, who he is out for the season, but you look at his stats up until he got hurt, he was he was the number 1 overall candidate for defensive player of the year. His stats were unreal. Why? And it's for someone like him who has hopes of making the NFL. why would he stay somewhere where they get no notice at all, like James Madison? Why would he not want to transfer to a Big Ten school, a Pac-12 school, where you do play really good competition? You're on TV every week. But at the same time, and you stay at James Madison, you're struggling to be on TV, one, but also you don't make a bowl game. None of these games really matter. I mean, I could see in a world where literally if you have a chance to make the NFL and you're on James Madison, why would you not transfer?
Yeah, I mean, all throughout history we've seen it, but it's just a thing with smaller schools like that. Like a lot of back in the day it wasn't that big of a thing, but we've seen it in the past because every school at some point in their, school lifetime has started where James Madison is right now. Constantly building your way up until, hopefully one day you can just make a conference and make a name for yourself. But I would say they're at a pretty good start.
I would love to see James Madison build this powerhouse program. I would love to have a new team in the mix year in and year out to be a serious threat instead of the same old Georgias, Alabamas, Clemsons. I would love to see a small school, which really they're not small by any means. They're a really big school. But a team like James Madison making a name for themselves and being in that competition where they're going to be undefeated every year and you can't count them out. You know what I mean? I would love to see that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's going to make next year so interesting when that 12-team playoff is implemented. If James Madison were to get up to 12 this year, then, I mean, that means if it was next year, they'd be in the playoffs, right? So, I mean, that's a pretty good damn way to start it.
Oh, yeah. Next year's going to be so fun, man. Oh, my gosh. I can't wait for next year. Obviously, not just from, a Kentucky or Louisville standpoint, even if both teams go winless all year long. Just the so many possibilities that could potentially happen in a 12-team playoff. And that's not even that much, really.
Oh, it's going to be great.
I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. It's going to make schools like Kentucky or Louisville, who really, they're big names, but not that upper echelon, the highest standard, like some of the other schools are. We're going to have a chance. Louisville's 100, almost pretty much a lock this year if there was a 12-team playoff bracket. Teams like Kentucky, they're going to have a chance to, if they win every game besides Alabama or besides Georgia, we could potentially make it, I mean, it's just, there's so many possibilities with 12 teams. I can't wait. It's going to be exciting.
Interesting, too, because, this year we're talking about, oh, damn, could we see, 2 SEC teams in the playoffs or 2 Pac-12 teams in the playoffs? Well, if it was a 12-team playoff, you'd have fucking 4 or 5 Pac-12 teams in the playoffs. 3 SEC teams in the playoffs, 2 ACC teams in the it's just you'd have so many teams from the same conference in the playoffs, and that just sounds so fun to me. Because not only that, but depending on matchups and everything, but we could see rivalry games in the playoffs, and that's even better.
Yeah, you're telling who wouldn't want to see a let me think. A Michigan team go up against Tennessee, that's a matchup that will never happen in a million years in the regular season. We would never get to see that unless for whatever reason Michigan had somewhat of a down year. Man, literally, just there's so many good matchups that we probably would never see ever. But with this 12-team playoff bracket, we are going to be able to see it.
Yeah, it's going to be fun next year for sure. Okay, so as you know, Parker, we're recording this during game day. There are games going on right now as we speak. What games today that haven't happened yet, or games that are maybe going on right now, do you see that are kind of catching your eye just really quickly?
Well, I do know, speaking of Michigan narrowly escaped Maryland. Maryland had a huge third quarter to really put them back into the game. Only 2 points scored in the fourth quarter. Literally, that was it. Michigan scored 2 points, and Maryland was shut out in the fourth quarter. So very strange there. But, I mean, How big would that have been if Maryland pulled off that upset, dude? Like, that would have changed everything. Everything.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to say it is so upsetting that we did not get a prediction in this week because Arizona, our pride and joy of this podcast, Parker, is currently shitting on Utah.
Yeah, for the past few years, I really have not seen much I like from Utah. Every year, I feel like they're a pretty overhyped program as far as football goes.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
I mean, I feel like they've been a top 15 team for the past 3-4 years now, and every year they finish with 4 or 5 losses.
Yeah. Also, Oklahoma State is down by 3 possessions, I think, right now, and this would be their second loss in a row after beating Oklahoma. I mean, what a fucking turnaround from beating a top 7 team in the nation to just potentially losing out with the way they look.
Yeah, it looks like they're really shutting down the run game. I mean, it's early. It's still only the second quarter. But interceptions thrown by Alan Bowman. Let's see what's going on over here with Houston's side. Houston looks like they ran a fake or some sort for a touchdown. And nothing really eye-popping, but just besides the run or the pass game. It looks like Houston's just passing wherever they want to against Oklahoma State. But yeah, what a downfall. I mean, that we saw that with Washington State this year. They came off a really, really big win, and then they couldn't even put anything together.
Yeah.
That's just it. Just shows you how just your mindset of your team can change so much. I mean, you put a team like Oklahoma State playing Oklahoma. I know every one of those boys were ready to get out there and just have nothing to lose mentality. They pull off the win, and now it's almost like you are held to a higher standard. You do have something to lose now when you're playing teams like Houston. And I wonder if that just gets in their head, and they're not playing how they should be playing, and we're seeing the result of that, being down 23-9.
Mm-hmm. So, did it say, like, what time the game was next week?
The Louisville-Kentucky game?
Yeah.
No, I don't think that there has been a time decided. I'll look it up really quick just to see if anything has broken out, but I don't.
I really hope it's a night game. That'd be really fun. It's a red out, by the way.
No. It's a blue out.
What?
It's a blue out.
Yeah, I said it's a red out.
No, it's a blue out.
Nah.
Yeah.
Nah.
Nope. It says time to be decided still. So
great.
Fingers crossed.
That's always fun.
I know you told me something yesterday. Whether you think that it is going to.
Yeah, I saw a couple tweets saying that it could be a noon game, which would probably be the worst thing ever.
Yeah, which I mean, I don't mind. We're going regardless.
I don't mind it. I just want the atmosphere to be there. In a noon game, I just don't see. You just don't see atmospheres like you want to see. Because it's just so early, Like, it's just... Like, 3:30. If it was 3:30, I'd be fine. Like, if it was a 3:30 kickoff, I'm fine with that. But noon, that's just not, like... It's not appealing. Like, you can't really tailgate either, because, like... Me personally, I don't want to get drunk at 11 in the morning. Like, it's just... You know what I mean? It just sucks.
Yeah, I definitely understand. I'm looking up right now that just the past few years, if I'm not mistaken, which I definitely could be wrong here, but I want to say the past few years that Kentucky-Louisville has played, it's always been a day game. I can't remember too many night games.
Yeah, it hasn't been a night game in forever, I feel like.
But at the same time, this is the first time in a long time that there has been a top 10 team in this game.
Yeah, I think the last time, if there ever was a last time, was probably maybe you guys in like 18.
I don't think top 10.
And if not that, then it was probably us maybe in 2013 or
You guys
potentially maybe the early 2000s.
Are you talking about when you had Lamar or before Lamar?
No, so 2013 is Teddy. And then the only other possible year that I can think of is the early 2000s, like 2006, 2007. But those are the only years that I can think of if it were to be that way. Even then, though, I don't know if we were ranked top 10.
Right. I don't know. I don't know. Hopefully, just fingers crossed that it is a night game. I'm looking on Louisville's website, but it doesn't say. It's just talking about like the history. It doesn't say anything about times or anything like that.
Okay, well, I see on our little agenda here. We have Georgia, Tennessee. We have that game kind of highlighted. That game is currently going on. It's the third quarter right now, and Tennessee is down by 14. So we will see how that pans out. Hopefully, maybe Tennessee can get the upset there, because that would be kind of cool. But at the same time, fuck Tennessee.
I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I don't either. But
this is a tricky game for someone who's a Kentucky fan, because I don't want to see a team like Tennessee win ever. But at the same time, I would love to see the upset over the number one ranked team. I would love to see it. I thought Tennessee would put up a much better fight, but
yeah,
Georgia's a different breed, man.
At the same time, if you're gonna see it, it is gonna be Tennessee that does it, because I don't think Georgia Tech is even gonna. Georgia Tech might not even score next week.
Well, you say that, but I feel like Georgia Tech is a very sneaky team. They haven't had that good of a season, but they have proven to take really good teams to the wire. Now, they may not have won those games, but they came ready to play, and they have gave some of these elite teams everything they've wanted.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely had a really close game against Louisville, for sure. But I mean, they beat UNC, which was huge at the time, but now it's kind of diminished, because, at least in my opinion, because UNC just hasn't looked the same since that loss.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, other than that, though, they've kind of just had.
But I mean, yeah, like
okay,
you said, they beat UNC, they beat Miami, and then they took Louisville to the wire. So some of these teams, which God, their schedule is cake. Some of these teams, they have really pushed some of these teams to everything they want. So me personally, I don't think that it will be a close game, but some boys can wish, I guess.
Yeah, it's gonna be
So tell me this: why has the Georgia Tech time already been decided, but the Louisville Kentucky time hasn't? And nobody wants to watch Georgia Tech and Georgia at 7:30.
Yeah, I mean that's just such weird. Like, I feel I don't know. I don't know why the Louisville Kentucky game is on a postpone for the time. It's on a 6-day hold, which means that we could get an answer as early as Monday or Tuesday, which is very late. Like, people got a plan to make the game. So if they make it a noon game, I feel like a lot of people are going to be pissed.
Yeah, here's another article, but it does, again, it's just not talking about the time or anything like that. Look, all this stuff. Clemson, South Carolina, that's at 7:30. That's another rivalry game. Ole Miss and Mississippi, 7:30. That's a rivalry game. Florida State's at 7. We're getting a
fucking.
Texas A&M and LSU are at noon, so we're getting a noon game.
Fuck.
We're gonna need a miracle. That's all. They're the only one. This is crazy. Actually, this is actually absurd. All the SEC teams that are in action next week, every one of them have a game that's decided besides the Louisville game.
Really?
Every one of them. Every single one of them.
Fuck. I just want to know why it was put on a 6-day hold. Like, were they trying to wait to see if Louisville won today or something? Like, what was the point?
Maybe that is what it is. Maybe, hopefully. Maybe there was going to be a noon game if Louisville loses today. Maybe they're waiting to see what Kentucky does if Kentucky wins.
You think because Louisville won today, maybe they're trying to see how far Louisville jumps up in the rankings and then go from there?
And then, I mean, if Kentucky loses, we're then 6-5. And I mean, what are you guys, 10-1 or 9-1?
10-1 now.
10-1. So, I mean, what's more appealing, a 10-1 matchup versus a 7-4 matchup, or a 10-1 matchup against a 6-5 matchup? You know, even though it's one game, it just looks more appealing if Kentucky is 7-4. Yeah. So I mean, they really could just be waiting to see what everybody does that day.
It's also like the best team in fucking college football against a mediocre ACC team. Like, I don't know. Me personally, I wouldn't want to watch that game. Like, I'd much rather watch, like, you know, a decent SEC team against what has looked like a very good ACC team.
And, I mean, me personally, and obviously I say this is just me living in Kentucky and being a Kentucky fan. I feel like Kentucky and Louisville is a better rivalry overall than Georgia Tech.
Can we talk about that for a second, actually? The Louisville and Kentucky rivalry is not talked about enough. And I know I know you said, like, as far as your view as a Kentucky fan, it's actually not that, like, important of a game. But dude, the rivalry is crazy. It is an electric ass rivalry. And I feel like it doesn't get talked about that much. Like, you know, obviously, like, Michigan, Ohio State is probably better.
I put up this article. I'm gonna read it off to you. Yeah. It's the top 25 best rivalries in college football. I bet, take a million guesses. You'll never guess what number one is.
It's probably not Ohio State, Michigan. Then if you said it like that.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, you might get it, but I don't think you will.
Okay, can I get like a conference from one of the teams?
They're both in the same conference.
You can't say what conference though.
What conference? I don't even know what conference this is, to be honest with you. It shows my football knowledge, I guess. I don't even know what conference it is.
Is that like a MAC team? Are they MAC teams?
Give me 1 second.
By the way, James Madison up 23-20 in overtime. App State has the ball right now to keep the game going. So
they are in. Okay, sorry.
I take it back. James Madison loses their undefeated record as they fall 26-23 to Appalachian State.
App State, they kicked a game-winning field goal?
No, they scored the game-winning touchdown.
You said they only won by 3, though, right?
Right. So James Madison kicked a field goal in overtime. App State scored a touchdown. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know it went to overtime yet.
Yeah.
One of the teams in this, they're in the AAC.
The AAC, the American Conference?
Yeah, that might give it away though.
Is it Cincinnati and somebody?
Nope.
What?
I'm telling you, dude. It makes sense. It makes sense, but I would have never guessed it.
Like, looking at the teams, it makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I'm trying to think, man. This is actually like an interesting question. You know what? Just to help me out a little bit, I'm gonna look at the American Conference real quick.
It's gonna give it away. You'll see it. It'll give it away.
I don't think it will, man, because I don't know rivalries off the top of my head, you know. Let's see though. American Conference football. This is some good banter we've got going on here, though. Just talking some ball. Is it? Is it USF and UA? No, wait. Never mind. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense.
No.
Is SMU one of the teams?
Nope.
What? Is it Charlotte and East Carolina?
No. I don't. Now, I think only one of the teams might be in the AAC. I don't think the other one is, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
Okay. Oh, Navy Army?
Yes. Navy and Army.
Dude. What the fuck? You know what? That is a good rivalry.
That's what I'm saying. Rivalry. It makes so much sense, but I would have, if you would have asked me, there's so many other ones that were more appealing.
Love the troops, man. Come on now.
Number 2 on this list is Auburn, Alabama. Again, makes sense.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Then number 3, Michigan, Ohio State.
Okay, I would probably put that over Alabama, Auburn, but
I would too.
At least in the past few years.
That could be just recency bias.
Yeah.
Then 4.
Well, I feel like even historically. I mean, you go back to the 90s, like when Charles Woodson was at Michigan.
Auburn used to be really good.
Yeah, that's true, but like I guess it's a different time period type of thing. Because if you go back to the 90s, you got Charles Woodson at Michigan tearing it up against Ohio State. Those Ohio State teams back then were really good as well. And then in the early 2000s, like early 2010s, obviously we had, Cam Newton at Auburn. We had that field goal kick return. So obviously during that time period, that rivalry is better. And then now, I would say Ohio State Michigan is kind of the better rivalry for sure.
I agree. Number 4, Oklahoma, Texas. Makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
Number 5, just take a guess what that is, because
another guess one.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna give you the conferences because I just what do you think?
I'm gonna just throw out North Carolina, South Carolina.
Nope, USC, Notre Dame.
Oh, that is a rivalry, isn't it?
A weird rivalry.
Yeah.
All the way across the country.
Yeah, I wonder why that became a rivalry.
Number 6 is BS. That is not a rivalry in my opinion. Georgia, Florida.
Oh.
I guess so, but no. I wouldn't put that there. Number 6.
I feel like Georgia owns Florida.
Not really. The all-time record is Georgia is winning, but it's only 55-44 with 2 ties.
Really? Well, yeah, that's fair actually, because I guess Florida was pretty good in the early, with under Urban Meyer. They were really good.
Number 7, Miami, Florida State. It's a good big rivalry every year. Then 8, Harvard, Yale. A game that I probably have never watched in my life.
Harvard, Yale. That was probably the first rivalry in college football.
Going down. Is there any... Pittsburgh and West Virginia at number 11.
Who?
Pittsburgh and West Virginia.
Oh, that's an intense rivalry actually.
Is it?
Historically, that's a pretty dirty one.
It's called every time they play, it's called the Backyard Brawl. That just sounds like a badass name.
Yeah.
Oregon State coming there at number 13. Still, no Kentucky, Louisville. Number 15 is, wow, I'm surprised this one's not higher. UCLA and USC. I feel like that would be much higher. Let's see. Still no Kentucky, Louisville. Then Alabama, Tennessee. That's always a good rivalry every year. Clemson, South Carolina coming in at number 18. Auburn, Georgia. Wow. Michigan State, 21. And what is crazy is Louisville and Kentucky don't even crack the top 25 as far as best rivalries in football.
What? Dude, I just read the origin of the USC and Notre Dame game. Do you want to hear why they're a rivalry? Why it started?
Wait, what teams?
USC, Notre Dame.
Yeah, what is it?
So, back in the early 1920s, the wife of the USC coach At the time, USC was looking for a rival because they didn't have any rivals at the time. And so they sent the head coach and his wife to Nebraska, where Nebraska was playing Notre Dame. And then the wife of the USC coach had a conversation with the Notre Dame coach's wife and pretty much told her, hey, we should become rivals. And then the Notre Dame coach was like, hell no, why would we do that to travel across the country? And then they came to the conclusion that a trip every 2 years to sunny Southern California was better than a trip to snowy Nebraska. That is how USC and Notre Dame became rivals.
That's actually
Is
insane.
because they didn't want to travel to the snow anymore.
That's just like a straight, hey, I don't want to play them anymore, so we're going to actually substitute you for them.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Is Louisville and Kentucky even on that list?
No, they're not even in the top 25 best rivalries in football. That's crazy.
The rivalry is so underrated. I feel like it's such a good rivalry.
And again, that just potentially could be, us living in Kentucky, obviously living in Louisville even more. That could be why. Like, hold up, let me look this up really quick, because I bet you Louisville and Kentucky are in the top 25 best rivalries in basketball. I guarantee they are.
You think it's just like a sport thing?
Yeah, I do. Ranking the top 25 best rivalries in college basketball.
Wow. They have Lafayette and Lehigh as a better rivalry than Louisville and Kentucky in football.
It's pretty insane.
I guess, historically in football, it just hasn't been a rivalry where people have looked at it and been like, whoa, these are two very good teams playing each other. It's usually just been like, whoa, this is a very good Kentucky team playing a very shit Louisville team. Or, whoa, a very good Louisville team playing a very shit Kentucky team. You know what I mean? Like, It's always just been kind of one-sided. It's never been, like, two very good teams going at it. So I guess maybe that's why people kind of diminish it in a way. But
yeah, but I mean,
there's so many other rivalries that are like that, especially nowadays. Like Georgia and Florida. Like, what?
Yeah. Here on this basketball one, number 12 is coming in Indiana and Kentucky, which is kind of weird. Kentucky hasn't played Indiana in basketball in years.
I guess historically, though, it's been a pretty good one.
Number 7 is Kentucky and Florida, which is obviously that's a great rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Number 2, Louisville versus Kentucky. So they think we have the second best rivalry in college basketball behind Duke and North Carolina.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good because, Louisville and Kentucky, two blue bloods in basketball. That's really good that they have us at number 2.
So, yeah, I guess that's just what it is. I think it's just
Yeah.
by sport. So, I think overall, just the basketball rivalry makes it that obviously Kentucky wants to beat Louisville in every single sport and vice versa, obviously. That's always a rivalry game, regardless of the sport for the fans. But to everybody else, it's really just a rivalry in basketball.
Right. All right, Parker. Well, to end us off here, would you like to do some predictions for the games that are yet to happen today, as far as the top 25 goes?
Yeah. Let me get it pulled up. Okay. Yeah, for sure. Are we? Are these going towards our record?
Yes. We will count these
Okay.
towards our record since they haven't happened yet. So we'll count them. It's only 6. It's only 6 games, but like you said, we can count them to our record.
Okay. Yeah, and then
by the way, Oklahoma State only down by 4 now, I think. Yeah, only down by 4 now. So that's pretty cool. that they came back.
And then, well, I'll add up everything, and then on Wednesday, which really might be the final week of predictions, because I think we're doing the next college football on Wednesday instead of Thursday, just being Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I'll have everything added up for that final week, and unless we do playoff predictions and all that good stuff, which we obviously can if you don't want, but we could make it a separate category.
Yeah,
so
we can do we can do bowl game predictions and stuff, but we'll just keep that as a separate thing.
Yeah, so I'll have everything added up next week. But yeah, if you want to start it off with the games.
All right, cool. Do you want to go ahead
through?
and say what the records are now so that people know?
I don't have them. I don't have
that's fine.
most updated ones.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so the first one, we've got North Alabama at Florida State.
Wow, what a great game off the bat, man. I think I'm gonna go with the upset. I'm gonna go Florida State.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree. I think,
Why
North,
the hell is Florida State playing North Alabama this late in the season?
who knows, man? Who fucking knows? I don't know why they are. All right, well, obviously we don't have to stay on that game too long. Dude, imagine if North Alabama won.
Make us look like idiots. Imagine just a dominating performance too.
Yeah,
imagine
dude.
they win like 52-3.
Yeah. All right, Kansas State at Kansas.
Now this is a good game. This is a really good game. Both teams have struggled, and both teams have showed signs of really good football this year. Being at Kansas, I guess this technically is another really good rivalry too. I'm gonna go Kansas here.
I really want to go Kansas as well, but I think I'm going to go Kansas State just because they're, at least more recently at least, Kansas State has looked better. They destroyed Baylor. They only lost by 3 to Texas last week, which they probably should have won that game. Before that, they blew out Houston. Before that, they blew out TCU. Before that, they destroyed Texas Tech. So I'm taking Kansas State because Kansas State has looked really good in their past 4 out of 5.
Yeah, they have.
Next one we've got Florida at Missouri.
This could be an interesting game, especially going into just the final rankings, and then also just going into next week, because some people have Missouri over Louisville as far as the college football playoffs go. So if Florida could somehow pull off a win, that could be really good in Louisville's favor, just to have another team not to worry about being ahead of them. But I am going with Missouri because their offense is so high-powered and just really good.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Missouri's 8-2. We're 10-1, so I'm not too worried about Missouri being ahead of us in the playoff rankings. I think we'll probably jump them after this week, regardless of if they win or lose. But I'm gonna take Missouri as well. It's at Missouri, so, and Missouri's looked good too recently. So I'm
their
taking Missouri.
offense is great, man, but it's just their defense can be so shaky at times.
Yeah, but it's the same way for Florida, even though their offense isn't outstanding. Nothing about Florida is outstanding, but I just meant more so their defense is really shaky.
Right.
But yeah, I'm going Mizzou. Now, this next one is very interesting. Washington at Oregon State.
Man, at Oregon State, I'm fully on the Washington bandwagon, and me personally, I think they deserve every bit of being in a playoff spot. They haven't lost yet, and I don't see it changing. I think they pull out a narrow victory against Oregon State.
Yeah, a great QB matchup too, by the way. Michael Penix versus DJ Ukulele. That's a great QB matchup. But I for the sake of the competition as well, but also because it's at Oregon State, it's at Beaver Stadium. I don't know. Something in me is telling me to take Oregon State. I think I'm
You
gonna
think
go.
the upset's gonna happen?
Yeah. I think I'm gonna go Oregon State here, and I don't know if that's maybe me just saying I want Oregon State to win because then Louisville would just rise hella far up the rankings, but yeah, I think I'm gonna go Oregon State. I'm gonna stand on business. I'm going Oregon State.
Standing on business, he said. Yeah, and that's gonna be a fun matchup, man. I didn't know
Yeah,
that was.
man. Yeah, I hope it is. Like if it's a slaughter, then that'd be kind
That
of sad.
might be. This is the
But,
that's really
the
best game of that week.
Yeah, but like at the same time, like Washington's defense isn't anything special. So like I feel like Oregon State's defense has been better this year than Washington's. So I feel like if their defense can maybe hold Michael Penix and hold that offense, or Oregon State might surprise a lot of people. But
And Washington has really been flirting with the devil here. They have escaped so many close games over the past few weeks. I mean, they're due for a loss.
Yeah, they've been tiptoeing that line for sure.
Ever since, since they played Arizona and they lost, or they won by 7, every one of their games have been extremely, extremely close.
Yeah.
Especially at teams like Arizona State, and Stanford, who are terrible. They're due for a loss, I'll be honest.
Yeah. Okay. The next one, also kind of interesting, I guess, depending on how you view the home team here. But we got Texas at Iowa State.
I have not watched too much of Iowa State. I did watch them against Oklahoma State it was almost like a month ago at this point, really. I don't even remember. I did watch them, though. But I think that it's just going to be a team's better than the other. I think it's just going to be, that's really all it's going to come down to is just the talent difference that Texas has. I don't see it being a matchup, really. I think the Texas pulls away late.
By the way, Arizona destroys Utah 42-18.
That's crazy. That's insane.
Some in me really wants to pick Iowa State again, but I'm not.
You're just wanting every team in front of Louisville to lose. That's all you're trying to do.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is for sure. But yeah, no, I'm going Texas. I'm going Texas here. I think Texas is just better. Iowa State, they're the same thing as Iowa. I find them to be kind of a boring team. They're also not that great. I know it's at Iowa State, but Texas, even without Quinn Ewers, is still good, even though they've been kind of tiptoeing the line of a loss. I think Texas will take it still.
Agreed.
All right.
And then finally,
last one
LSU
here.
and Georgia State.
Georgia State at LSU, which we don't have to stay here very long. It's LSU. LSU will win this game. Jaden Daniels will have his way with Georgia State.
Yep. No
And
lies were told.
and it will be fun to watch him do it because Jaden Daniels is the Heisman winner of this year. All right.
You think so? Really? Whoa!
That's going to do it from
we
us
can't-
here on
Whoa!
the podcast.
You really think so?
I mean, he should. He should. If he's-
Over players like Michael Penix?
Yes, 100%.
What? And now
100%.
is it just stats wise? Is that what you're looking at?
Well, if you watch him play, he's electric. Does anything he wants on the field. And then you look at his stats, and he just looks like the best player in the country.
Well, in that case, then it should be. And if you're using that, then I think it's Caleb Williams.
So, Caleb Williams is behind Jaden Daniels in everything except passing touchdowns, I'm pretty sure. Which, in that category, he leads by a pretty decent margin, actually, if I'm not mistaken.
I think as everything stands right
actually
now,
know.
it's Michael Penix. And my main thing is just because, I mean, he's led Washington to an undefeated record. Regardless if some of these games have been pretty close, they're still undefeated, you know? They've done everything they've been asked to. And that alone, I think that's why Michael Penix, to me, is the front runner.
Yeah, I mean, it's more so of like the ability of Jaden Daniels, like his passing ability and running ability. Like, I just love quarterbacks who have that dual threat ability because you really just don't know how they're going to take over a game. You just know they're going to do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it was the same way with Lamar. Like, everyone knew he could take over a game. They just didn't know how he was going to do it, which I think I just love that about Jaden Daniels. It makes me love to watch him play. I love watching him play. The only reason why I think his Heisman campaign is diminished and why I don't think he'll win it if he doesn't win it is because of their record. Which isn't his fault. Like he has not lost them games. Their defense has. So
just throwing it in there over the past month or 2 months, one of the best quarterbacks in the nation has been very similar play style to McDaniels is Jalen Milroe. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Milroe's been phenomenal for the past.
Jalen,
month.
And he's the exact same. He scrambles. I said McDaniels. I'm sorry. I meant Jane Daniels. He scrambles. He throws the ball great. He's been torching any team he's played so far. I mean, obviously he had a rough start of the season, but I mean now after however
he's
long,
fine now.
And obviously, as far as the Heisman race, every single week that goes by, the stakes get higher and higher. So someone like Milroe who struggled and got benched, those games really don't even matter because of the way he's been playing for the past few weeks. He still could potentially be in that Heisman race.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Milroe's definitely making a name for himself, but they end the year off like very weirdly, so it just kind of hurts his chances, I feel like. Like they played Chattanooga today. So like, you know what I mean?
What's with these teams playing some bum-ass opponents mid-season?
Who knows? Not even mid-season. We're at the end.
In season.
We're at the end here, Parker.
In season.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very weird.
I'm sure you would do the same thing. I would love for Kentucky to play anybody.
Dude, yeah. If we had fucking
Georgia State,
yeah, on some NCAA 14 shit. Like if Louisville had FCS East next week, like I'd be like, fuck yeah. But
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
it's weird, dude. I don't know how scheduling works, but I find it very weird that teams do that. All right, well,
I think that wraps it up for today.
Yeah,
I believe.
Yeah. Do you have anything else that you want to go over?
No,
I guess I do have one more thing.
Yeah.
Top 4 right now, for the playoffs. Who you got?
Rankings.
Yeah.
Georgia. Georgia number 1. This is in order too. Georgia number 1. Michigan number 2. As of right now, I am putting Ohio State number 3 and Washington number 4.
Okay.
Obviously, that's going to change
Hey.
After next week because obviously Michigan and Ohio State play each other. But as of right now, where it stands, I think those are my 4 in order. What's yours?
Got you. Mine might shock you.
Well, I know Florida State's going to be in there.
Hold on to that thought.
Oh.
I've got Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and you actually might not like this one because it's been like this for the last goddamn 5 years, but Alabama.
Oh.
And the only reason I say that is because with the way Alabama has looked, they've already clinched their spot in the SEC championship against Georgia. If they beat Georgia, they're for sure to make it in as a one-loss team. They'd make it over Louisville if Louisville stays one loss. They'd make it over Oregon and Washington, which that's another interesting story because they're for sure going to play each other in the Pac-12 championship again. And if Oregon beats Washington and hands them their one loss, then I think Alabama would probably jump 2 one-loss Pac-12 teams. And, I mean, and Florida State, you know, I think if Florida State... This is really hard for me because obviously, I think Florida State deserves to be there, but at the same time, something is telling me that even if they stayed undefeated, for some reason, if Alabama beat Georgia in the SEC championship, for some reason, that makes me feel like they'd drop an undefeated Florida State to 5th and then would put Alabama in over them.
Here's the thing. If Alabama beats Georgia, Alabama is a lock 100%. Somebody's getting kicked out, regardless.
Yeah.
On the other side, though.
And it's on the same spectrum, though, Parker. It's not going to be Michigan or Ohio State because they don't play each other in the Big Ten Championship. They just play each other. And like we said earlier in the episode, they play next week, but at least maybe in our opinions, that one loss for either team isn't going to do anything to them. Right? Like,
I don't know.
We said...
Obviously, losses mean so much at the end of the season than it does at the beginning of the season. Same with the Heisman race.
But at the same time, if you're number 3 losing to number 2, potentially number 1, is that really going to drop you out of the top 4? Unless it's a blowout. Unless Michigan destroys Ohio State, I don't see Ohio State getting knocked out as a one-loss team.
If Alabama beats Georgia, I think that Alabama and Georgia are both still in. And I think that's just because of SEC bias. Just everybody's being SEC bias. I think both of them are going to get in. I think if Michigan beats Ohio State and Washington beats Oregon again, I think Ohio State gets knocked out to Washington. I think Washington gets in over Ohio State if they beat Oregon twice in 1 year. And then obviously Michigan would be in if they beat Ohio State.
If Washington goes undefeated, I think they make it in. I think Oregon will probably beat them in the rematch though.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that too.
Yeah.
Oregon has looked much better than Washington over the past few since they've played each other. Really.
Yeah, that Washington loss seems like it pissed off Oregon, but
so I mean,
these last couple weeks are going to be fun. These last couple weeks are going to be interesting and fun.
I think that if Oregon does beat Washington, and obviously if this is all if Washington wins tonight, if Oregon does beat Washington, I really think, I think your point's right. I think one-loss Pac-12 teams don't get in.
Yeah, I mean, like you just said, if Oregon State beats Washington, then I mean, Washington can almost kiss their playoffs goodbye. Yeah. Oh, just lost Parker, everyone. Well, that's going to do it from us here at the Take His Whistle podcast. I have been Josh. That has been Parker. He's not here anymore because he just disconnected. But we appreciate you guys for listening, as always. And we will see you guys in the next one. Thank you, guys.